Welcome everyone to the Spoiler Warning Podcast. Today, if you like politics out of your wrestling, this is not going to be the show for you. We are going to be talking Vince McMahon, we are going to be talking Donald Trump, and we're going to be talking some of the questionable reports that I've seen coming from Dave Meltzer over the past few weeks about Triple H potentially going into politics when there's no evidence at all to support it. So we are going to be getting into that. We are going to be going into quite a lot of detail because there is some quite intense ties between the current president of the United States and the WWE, and they stretch back to literally the year I was born and more. Also, there is a lot that ties directly to Vince McMahon, and part of this is one of the reasons that Vince McMahon was forced to leave the WWE, at least the first time, when some of the payments that he had a habit of making to people such as Donald Trump were discovered by the WWE board who weren't particularly happy with them. So we're going to get into this quite a bit because I do feel, as a journalist, I have a responsibility to make sure that you, as a wrestling fan, understand what wrestling actually is. Wrestling is heavily Republican skewed. The bloodlust element apparently is a big part of it, but it is also full of a unique variety of people. It's been getting more liberal over the years, but the liberal element of wrestling has shifted largely to AEW, despite Tony Khan, a Republican, at the head of that particular party. Triple H, Republican. Vince McMahon, Republican. Republicans weave very closely through WWE, and this is why Donald Trump historically has woven through it as well. He has very close business ties with Vince McMahon, and there was a period in which they were working extremely closely together. I'll start with 1988. We're going to go back quite a long way to start with here, because we have to go back to WrestleMania 4. WrestleMania 4 was a tournament in which Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant were seeded, and it was Randy Savage versus the $1 Million Man in the main event. It was Deadly Game style, if you remember Survivor Series 1998, 10 years later. It does not feel like 10 years later, given the change in style that we had. These events were apparently at Trump Plaza. Of course, they weren't at Trump Plaza, they were in Atlantic City, but they weren't at Trump Plaza because there wasn't a Trump Plaza there. This was, of course, part of Trump's casino portfolio. It was a different building. There was no Trump Plaza, but it was a building owned by Donald Trump. Both events were sponsored by Donald Trump, and this was believed at the time to be a way to get more eyes on the product. WrestleMania 1 had been a huge gamble. Vince McMahon had essentially bankrupted himself in order to bankroll WrestleMania 1, and he was looking in subsequent years for ways to raise the profile and to generate more money. Donald Trump getting involved and giving him some money seemed the ideal way to do it, and it did mean that Donald Trump got to be on TV, his locations got to be on TV, and they shared audiences. It was, by all accounts, an incredibly profitable deal on both ends. Donald Trump didn't just sponsor the event, he also helped with the marketing, getting the word out there, and then he stood up ringside and was celebrated at back-to-back WrestleManias as a pioneer. He wasn't just shown at ringside like many celebrities are now, he was able to essentially cut promos during WrestleMania. This was 30 years before he became president the first time? Well, nearly 30 years at least. So this was a man who was already raising his profile, and it's one of these reasons that Donald Trump is likely to be getting back involved with the WWE in the weeks and months to come. This was something which really cemented a crossover appeal. It made the WWE brand more marketable to the rich, which of course is their main target audience. Their main audience is not you guys sat in the bleachers, it's you guys sat up front row. It's Green Shirt Guy. Green Shirt Guy is a target audience of the WWE, and it's the main reason why, since TKO took over a couple of years ago, ticket prices have more than doubled. The WWE are no longer celebrating attendances, they're celebrating revenue. They are celebrating, we don't care how many people are here, we've made this much money. And it does stem quite closely to those Republican-led values, and it's the main reason, I suspect, in Washington, D.C., the WWE are going to try and get Donald Trump involved. Now, this did continue, and there was a heavy period in which Donald Trump reached out to Vince McMahon and essentially asked, can you help me raise my profile ready for a presidential run? At this point in time, 2007, there was not a presidential run, but Donald Trump was seriously considering becoming the president of the United States as long as 20 years ago. Probably longer, let's be fair. In 2007, Donald Trump raised his profile further by appearing on WWE TV in a quote-unquote battle of the billionaires. This was at WrestleMania 23, so a full 19 after the first show that he sponsored. The storyline was quite simple. Donald Trump chose a wrestler to represent him, and he was, of course, a massive, delicious beefcake, Bobby Lashley. Vince McMahon chose someone to represent him, and it was, of course, a flaming Samoan, Umaga. And in order to raise the profile even further for past fans of WWE, the referee was Stone Cold Steve Austin. For those unaware, Stone Cold Steve Austin, at least at the time, was a big fan of Donald Trump, as was Bobby Lashley, who, by the way, is a Republican. This match was billed as a hair versus hair match, with Donald Trump taking part in the shaving of Vince McMahon's head, something that Vince McMahon was already planning to do. But a hair versus hair, imagine it now, Donald Trump being willing to shave his head. Another thing that I want you to imagine happening now, that definitely wouldn't happen now, Donald Trump, in order to make this happen, had to be willing to take a stone cold stunner from Steve Austin. But he did get a moment at which he jumped onto Vince McMahon and punched him repeatedly in some of the worst worked punches you will ever see outside of Shane McMahon. The McMahons either do them badly or take them badly. It's a horrible thing. This is something that Donald Trump played on the campaign trail for president. It became a meme so strong that anytime Donald Trump owns anyone, they would simply stick the name of it on Vince McMahon's face and show Donald Trump pounding away and, my God, missing so completely. It is amazing that this meme became a show of, look how tough he is, when he literally was faking the whole thing. The same people who tell you, you know wrestling's fake, right, will also tell you, look at Donald Trump punching Vince McMahon in the face. It makes no sense, none whatsoever, and I don't understand why people are into this. Anyway, Bobby Lashley won. Nowadays, I can't see Donald Trump either taking the Stone Cold Stunner or, in fact, sharing a platform with someone who looks like Bobby Lashley. But we are where we are on that one. This is also a period in which Vince McMahon appeared on The Apprentice. So it did work both ways. This was a situation in which Donald Trump gained big wins. The Apprentice became a huge show, an absolute juggernaut, and WrestleMania 23's ratings were very well received. The Donald Trump element, particularly around potential presidency, has always worked well for the WWE. It wasn't too long after that they did a very poorly received Rosie O'Donnell versus Barack Obama match, which was just god-awful. Just in every possible way awful. The WWE in politics has always been very firmly Republican-led, and the Donald Trump element of it really should show that. It's also why people like AJ Styles find it home. You also see it in people like The Rock, who's historically a Republican. You see it in Stone Cold Steve Austin. You see it in Triple H. There's a whole generation of them. Hulk Hogan appeared at the Republican National Convention to rip his shirt off, and then begged the WWE to allow him to make appearances there to capitalize on that momentum. I mean, when you no longer have someone like Daniel Bryan, the lefty liberal hippie, it doesn't really balance out. 2 years after this, in 2009, the WWE ran a storyline in which Donald Trump bought Monday Night Raw. They had him pre-record, and it took quite a few, a promo in which he announced that for the first time, Raw would be commercial free. He also announced a refund to all fans for the cost of their tickets, which I've asked fans about this. Not everyone got that refund. Not everyone got it. In fact, the WWE abandoned this storyline incredibly quickly because the price of WWE stock dipped on the market. WWE did not survive really based on this, because they lost stock, they lost value, they lost money because of this storyline in which it was reported that Donald Trump had bought Monday Night Raw. For those unaware, and I've been looking into this for the last year or so, the stock markets do not like Donald Trump. Stocks do not like Donald Trump. Crypto does. Crypto loves Donald Trump. But crypto and stocks are not the same thing. Investing in crypto does not mean an investment in America, does not mean an investment in the world, whereas investing in the stock market is typically an investment in American companies. WWE is one of the biggest American companies around. It is a huge flyer. It is a big name in the stock market. And in 2009, it needed that input because this was not a strong period for the WWE. The WWE needed Donald Trump. And when that stock value started to dip, they aborted completely and abandoned what would have been a storyline that featured Donald Trump making numerous additional appearances. Worked out pretty well for Donald Trump, didn't work out for the WWE, which is why, for a long time after this, we didn't see Donald Trump on WWE TV. It took 4 years before his Hall of Fame induction. That's right. After appearing during one match and turning up for one promo and 2 appearances at ringside, he apparently was worthy of a Hall of Fame induction. Not only that, but he was inducted by Vince McMahon himself, the guy that he's apparently so tough that he beat the hell out of, and people keep telling me wrestling's fake. Vince McMahon inducted Donald Trump into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2013. And as we got closer to Donald Trump announcing his attempt at the presidency, which started very soon after this, it was very clear that Donald Trump would have Vince McMahon in his corner going forwards. I want to come now to the financial aspect. The part in which Vince McMahon bankrolled an element of Donald Trump's finances, and at the time, in investigations that came forward more than 10 years later, there were serious questions asked about this by the WWE board. In 2007, so around the time of the Battle of the Billionaires, $4 million was transferred from Vince McMahon to the Donald J. Trump Foundation. This money came directly from the WWE, not directly from Vince McMahon, and it is one of the payments that the WWE investigated when they were investigating hush money payments that Vince McMahon had been paying. Another payment in 2009, so around the Trump buys Raw storyline, of $1 million happened as well. Again, it was not publicly known, it was not publicly revealed, but it was at the same time as a Donald Trump appearance. So in the Battle of the Billionaires, Donald Trump expected money from Vince McMahon, the guy who, by the way, is not a billionaire. How did the rich guy end up with a $4 million payment from the poor guy? How did the guy in 2009 who bought Raw end up making $1 million for it? Many will point to this as incredible business acumen from Donald Trump. Personally, I think the guy's a bully, and I think it has worked for him so long that why would he change? He bullies, he extorts, but he gets his way so reliably that it's proven an effective tactic. Vince McMahon, however, was investigated as part of this, and he left the company in 2022. He later would come back and essentially force his way in, but this is the main reason he left initially, and this is the main reason why board members such as Triple H and Stephanie McMahon voted for him not to return. And him being Vince McMahon, he returned anyway. This is a man who does not take no for an answer. In fact, to be fair, this is 2 men who do not take no for an answer. When the corporate filings were investigated as to why this money was paid, it was apparently listed as company expenses benefiting WWE, not personal gifts. So it wasn't a bribe, But I don't understand really why Vince McMahon would hide it. Do you remember that plane that the country of Qatar just bought Donald Trump? Bribes don't exist anymore. They really don't. We live in a world in which you can be bought a plane and it's just good business. What the hell did Vince McMahon have to answer for? All he did was pay a hell of a lot of money to a hell of a lot of people out of WWE accounts, which wasn't his money to spend. Innocent party, obviously. These things do continue. There are clear now political connections between the WWE and the McMahon family, not just Vince McMahon. Linda McMahon served as administrator of the US Small Business Administration between 2017 and 2019 and is actively the Secretary of Education during a period in which Donald Trump is actively dismantling the Department of Education. That's the world we live in as well. Now, Linda McMahon and Vince McMahon are no longer together and are very firmly not connected, but the connections are indeed still there. And there are multiple pictures of Vince McMahon and Donald Trump together. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that there may be anything particularly nefarious. To be clear, I'm going to make no allusions and ask no questions about things like the Epstein files. That is not my place, and I'm not going to speculate about things like that. But there are ties. Triple H recently appeared alongside Donald Trump to announce the presidential fitness test returning, which, if you look at Donald Trump, you would know that he is the fittest president that has ever been in the White House. Because apparently that's what it was. What a world we live in. He can also identify a horse, which is good to know. He did an IQ test. He can identify what a horse looks like. That's all it takes to be the president. There are other examples of the McMahon family and the Donald Trump, well, the Trump family working together, and plenty of them. They have had many a luncheon and talked many a business deal. Vince McMahon is a frequent contributor to the Donald Trump campaign, even if it is just in advice. And even though Vince McMahon has vanished into the night, he has not vanished into the night in the world of Donald Trump. At his recent birthday party, while Donald Trump was not there, representatives of the Trump administration certainly were. Now, if I want to go into this in more detail, I need to dive on comments that have recently been made by Dave Meltzer. Dave Meltzer has been saying, and one of the reasons last week we talked about AI is because of Dave Meltzer saying that they are using AI so that Triple H can take time off to pursue his political agenda. The intention seems quite clear. Triple H is working or attempting to work with the Trump presidency. However, this has been going on for a while now, and it's not Triple H. It is Nick Khan, the CFO of the WWE, that is spending most time liaising with the Trump administration. The WWE were planning a pretty major show in Mexico. This was cancelled when Donald Trump became president, and the WWE is said to have reassessed their intentions to think about what they were really going for. The WWE since then has had many conversations with the Trump presidency and the administration about which countries should get WWE events. As a point, I live in the UK. Donald Trump is said to be very favourable to the UK. He has a very good relationship with Keir Starmer, our Prime Minister. The only reason the WWE hasn't appeared in the UK this year, despite having conversations with Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, they brought him the tiniest championship belt. It was kind of emasculating. Anyway, is because under the previous Conservative government, the Mayor of London was able to spend money on major WWE events because they weren't taking place in London. They were taking place around the UK in areas where the Conservative government could offer money, knowing that the economy would be stimulated by those shows, which is true. It did make a lot of money for the UK. Under the current Labour government, that is not something that government are particularly interested in. Even though Sadiq Khan is trying to make it happen, he has not had the funds released to make that happen. So Donald Trump is hopeful about things with the UK. He wants to make that happen. The Australia appearance, Donald Trump very happy with as well. But the WWE are considering where to make their travels to. Trump is said to have not been particularly happy about the Paris PLE, but it was far too late in the day to make changes to that. There is also a belief in WWE, when I speak to people there, that the deal to get WrestleMania in Saudi Arabia may also have been somewhat influenced by Donald Trump, which is just an interesting way of looking at things when you consider how often Donald Trump has celebrated Saudi Arabia in recent years. Donald Trump makes a point of mentioning the WWE whenever he can. In 2015, he called a Republican debate a little bit like WWE and praised Vince McMahon as a terrific guy. In 2024, during a campaign speech, he referred to Kane and The Undertaker by name, in fact pointing out Kane and being very upset about the weight of Kane. That was apparently important to him. And also during the storylines in 2007 and 2009, there are a number of quotes I have here where he said to Vince McMahon, "I'm taller than you and I'm better looking than you." And when he bought Raw, "My first act as owner is to do something unprecedented." Basically, he was an anonymous GM for a week and WWE lost a ton of money for it, including the $1 million they had to pay him. Was it worth it? No. Moving on then, there are a few other things I do want to discuss. First and foremost, moving on to the topic of Vince McMahon having gone away. There is always, and I feel there always will be, conversations about whether Vince McMahon has actually left the WWE. There are reasons to believe that he is not, that he is having input. I do believe, and I have heard, that he does speak with Triple H about storylines and make suggestions. He does speak with people like Stephanie McMahon, who is not directly involved with the WWE, but has on occasion stepped into a talent liaison role and had involvement there. Vince McMahon is also said to have been involved with the return of Brock Lesnar. So even though he's apparently gone away, Vince McMahon does still have power in the WWE and does still have a strong connection with Donald Trump. I'm going to move on now to a few other topics. Firstly, before I get to the wrestling receipt, where we look at recent wrestling reports and highlight what is wrong and what is being lied about, I do want to talk about the Discord. We have a Discord here at the Tom Colohue channel that is currently in the description. I've been pushing that recently for a reason. YouTube is no longer really highlighting or recommending wrestling content. They are not really recommending or highlighting the big channels anymore. Recently, YouTube went through a phase where essentially it started to highlight smaller channels, convincing more people to get started in YouTube. But then after a while, that love seems to have gone. One of the things that really helps the growth of a YouTube channel is something called click-through rate. So if YouTube recommends you a video and you don't click it, that works against that video. But if it recommends you a video and you do, it says, oh, people like this video, we'll get it out there. It comes as a percentage. If you have, for example, a 5% click-through rate, that means out of 100 people, 5 clicked on it. That is considered a good click-through rate, even though it can certainly be better. There are some videos of mine that average 7 or 8%. There are some videos that only average the 3. This is something that does happen, and it does give you a good measure as to how interesting the video is, whereas watch time, view duration, tells you how good the video is. The reason I'm pushing people towards Discord is that if you click on a YouTube video from an external source like the Discord and like Google, where I'm making my titles a lot more Google friendly at the moment, or like Google, the end result is 100% click-through rate. Because YouTube hasn't shown you that. It hasn't shown you that video, but you still clicked on it. So there's no risk and only reward. If in fact you click on this video, and I'll be posting in the Discord after, from the Discord, and I have say 500 people watching it and 100 people watching it from the Discord, the minimum will be a 20% click-through rate, but it will also have all the clicks outside of that. So if I get a 5%, that'll be a 25% click-through rate, which will mean this video is one of the most popular on YouTube and likely will end up on the trending page. That's the sort of thing we're talking about here. That's the sort of thing that really helps the growth. And that's why I'm pushing the Discord at the moment. If you haven't done so yet, click on the link in the description, join the Discord, and click on the videos when I post them there. We're going to move now to the wrestling receipt, where I look back using the resource of cage side seats at previous rumours and just talk about how many of them are right or wrong. This is a bit of a good week when it comes to the rumour look back and the wrestling receipt. There will be times when I go into more detail. For example, after Saturday Night Main Event, I will go into more detail as to rumours about Saturday Night Main Event. There's a couple more I've got as well, but for now, on April 21st, 2023, they came back a long way. I promise you it's worth staying with me. WrestleVotes heard that WWE and the USA Network are working on a joint show where kids will compete with superstars in a trivia challenge. The current name of the show is WWE Tall and Small. Y'all remember that show? Me neither. April 19th, there's a reason I'm telling you this one as well. WrestleVotes told Give Me Sport that a Roman Reigns vs Cody Rhodes rematch is very much on the table to be the main event of WrestleMania 40 next year in Philadelphia. I reported this a couple of weeks beforehand. It did in fact happen, but I quickly want to highlight Give Me Sport because the WrestleVotes and Give Me Sport connection was highlighted by a guy called Louis Dango. There were rumours that came out about him shortly after this, something involving pizza and making women uncomfortable. You can look it up if you would like. And he supposedly left Give Me Sport. There were suggestions and rumours afterwards that Give Me Sport had just renamed him. But yeah, he worked for Wrestle Talk, he worked for Give Me Sport, he worked directly with WrestleVotes, and then he vanished without a trace and we haven't heard of him since. So it's always interesting seeing these things happen. There's another name I'll be talking about later on that. Minneapolis-based reporter Patrick Kessler says his sources tell him the city is a finalist to host WrestleMania 41 in 2025. Now, WrestleMania's moved a lot. WrestleMania was moved to Vegas, away from Minneapolis, Minnesota. So that was technically right, but it also didn't happen, so it was technically wrong. Which is very awkward in every way. On May 8th, 2023, Wrestling Observer Radio says Dave Meltzer said Nashville is getting WrestleMania in 2027. Didn't happen. And now we get to more modern rumours. So just quickly going through them, we see here Fightful Select indicates there are currently no plans for Donald Trump to make an appearance at WrestleMania. WWE Creative haven't been told anything about Trump. People working behind the scenes haven't been asked to prepare for him to be there. The name Donald Trump pops up non-stop in WWE. Absolutely non-stop. PW Insider thinks there's a 99.9% chance Living Colour will play Cult of Personality live at WrestleMania for Punk's entrance in the main event. Meanwhile, Fightful heard WWE considered bringing in Slayer to play Damian Priest to the ring on Sunday, both of which was true. Insider notes that Lana is in Vegas with Rusev, and the word making the rounds is that she signed a WWE Legends deal. As for Rusev, he's expected to start any time with WWE. Now, we can confirm, of course, that Rusev did start, but there is no suggestion of any Legends deal for Lana. In fact, there is no suggestion of any merch, any connection, any name or branding values. I would suggest that if any Legends deal was signed, it was simply so that she cannot compete anywhere else, and it is so that she gets essentially as little money as possible to stay away from wrestling. Triple H told the Daily Mail's Alex McCarthy that he believes the concept of NXT Europe is still going to happen, as well as the expansion of what we're doing around the globe. NXT Europe has not happened. So while this comes directly from Triple H, it is technically incorrect. Alex McCarthy I briefly worked with back in the days in Sportskeeda. Alex McCarthy once made a point of disputing a report that I'd made about Aleister Black. What he was disputing was what it was apparently my report, that WWE had lost faith in Aleister Black. That is not something I ever reported, and when I told him this, he decided to claim that I had reported it anyway. Now, it wasn't too long after this, Alex McCarthy, who had gone on the attack about someone taking a mental health break, that was me, by the way, and walking away from wrestling for a couple of months to recover, after, bullies and shit. Death threats, by the way. It was Alex McCarthy who, when he got a report about Charlotte Flair wanting to wrestle Bianca Belair and Charlotte Flair being the good guy in the issues between her and Becky, he took a break for his mental health because people were getting on at him for taking information directly from the Charlotte Flair and Ric Flair camp, calling it sources and being very obviously biased. Now, I do believe in mental health breaks, and I wish Alex McCarthy all the best right now, hopefully that he has learned that mental health is important. For whatever it's worth, Wrestling Observer's Dave Meltzer speculated Omos would make sense as a possible opponent for Randy Orton at WrestleMania 41 on Sunday night. Randy Orton was given a list of possible names. He chose Joe Hendry because he believes in Joe Hendry. Going to do that nice and quiet because I don't know how much it might pop the camera. Another one I need to dispute as part of this Wrestling Receipt is the report that AJ Lee signed a long-term deal with the WWE. And I'm just going to quickly check who it was who reported it initially because it's absolutely not true. AJ Lee signed a long-term deal with WWE. Now, Google is AI driven, so that should pop up very nice. Ooh, where is a lot of people reporting on it? Signed a new long-term full-time contract with WWE, says AI. Definitely not full-time. Body Slam. So it was Body Slam reporting that AJ Lee has signed a multi-year full-time contract with WWE. Now, I mentioned at the time that what had actually happened was that she'd signed a deal for one match in which she and WWE afterwards would decide if they were going to do something bigger. That, of course, is what actually happened. So I am going to dispute that one because, to be clear, if she was full-time, she probably would have appeared again since. WWE Current are pulling advertised appearances for AJ Lee. The last thing I want to touch on is Saturday Night Main Event. I like to do a preview at the end of these shows and basically highlight what the intention is for Saturday Night Main Event and try and get you a bit hyped for what hopefully will be a good show. We at Current have 3 matches confirmed going by WWE.com. Firstly, we have CM Punk against Jey Uso for the World Heavyweight Championship. This is, of course, because Seth Rollins has had to vacate the title due to injury. Seth Rollins at the moment is still trying to convince the WWE to give Bron Breakker the championship. Triple H seems more interested in Paul Heyman. Nope, he's more interested in CM Punk having the championship, whereas Paul Heyman... wrong way around. Triple H is interested in having Roman Reigns be the World Heavyweight Champion. It is Paul Heyman who is pulling for CM Punk to become the World Heavyweight Champion. I don't see a winner here. I see this being a little bit of skullfuckery. I think we're going to see Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed come down to the ring, beat the living hell out of both Jey and CM Punk, and eventually be driven off by a Jimmy Uso, if Jimmy Uso isn't already involved in some way with Cody Rhodes and Drew McIntyre. But of course, I expect this one will be the opener of the show, so it's a good opportunity for Jimmy Uso to take a major beating, so he can't get involved with Cody Rhodes and Drew McIntyre later in the night. The second match already confirmed is another rematch. This is the third match between Tiffany Stratton and Jade Cargill. And guys, this has to be Jade Cargill, right? This has to be Jade Cargill. It's the third one. And that's not counting things like triple threat matches with Nia Jax. Jade Cargill has been given so many chances. And Tiffany Stratton has looked great. She's looked fantastic this year. But I do feel like we need a refresh. We could be going into WrestleMania with Bianca Belair winning it, turning heel, and then taking on Jade Cargill, and then the other way, or I should say the other way around, between Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill. There's good options there. But I don't think Tiffany Stratton goes into WrestleMania as the champion. There is an option currently being considered about Liv Morgan potentially winning the Rumble and challenging Tiffany Stratton. However, what I would say is the WWE by now have to know who is winning the Royal Rumble. They have to. They absolutely have to. So you will see, leading into and out of Survivor Series, a pivoting of championships. You will see small tweaks and changes being made. I suspect, for example, Gunther might be winning the United States Championship from Ilya Dragunov and going on to successfully defend it against Brock Lesnar of WrestleMania. That's an option available and might be why we've seen Ilya Dragunov win the United States Championship. Sami Zayn might end up winning the Royal Rumble and competing against, let's say, Jey Uso as a heel for the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania. That might be why he's lost the championship. These little tweaks and changes are going to be very, very telling. In the main event, in which I do not see a championship changing hands, we have Cody Rhodes versus Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre has been in and around the championships the whole time. Cody Rhodes is still being built and elevated after winning the championship back from John Cena at SummerSlam. Cody Rhodes was champion for about a year before John Cena won it. He is going to be the main event of WrestleMania once again, so I don't see him losing the championship, and even if he does, he'll have it back in absolutely no time. So it would not really help Drew McIntyre to have it. Cody Rhodes, for me, wins this one, vanquishes Drew McIntyre, and everyone moves on with their life. If you haven't already, hit like on the video. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. If you've been here for the premiere, you'd have seen me in the chat. Hopefully we've all had a great time and you've enjoyed it. If not, lie to me. Tell me you've had a great time anyway. Be sure to join the Discord. I've been Tom Colohue. You have been fantastic, and I'll see you all very soon.